In the Bible, there were two cities called Sodom and Gomorrah. These cities were filled with people who made very bad choices and didn't listen to anyone, not even God. God saw what was happening and was very sad. He decided that he couldn't let it go on anymore. But there was one good man named Lot who lived in Sodom with his family. God didn't want to hurt Lot because Lot always tried to do what was right. So God sent two angels disguised as men to Sodom. They went to Lot's house. Lot saw them and invited them in, being kind and hospitable. He didn't know they were angels at first, but he wanted to make sure they were safe in his city. But the people of Sodom saw these strangers and wanted to harm them. They surrounded Lot's house and demanded Lot to send the strangers out. Lot tried to protect his guests, showing he was a good man. They told him, "You need to leave this city with your family because God is going to destroy it for being so wicked." The angels told Lot to take his wife and two daughters and warned them to not look back once they left. God was going to rain down fire and brimstone from the sky to cleanse the land of all evil. So Lot and his family ran away in the middle of the night. They ran as fast as they could, away from the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Behind them, the sky lit up as fire fell, burning everything in those cities to the ground. It was like a giant fiery storm wiping away all the wrongdoings. Lot's wife, however, made a big mistake. Even though the angels told her not to, she looked back to see what was happening to the city. And because she didn't listen, she turned into a pillar of salt, stuck there forever. Lot and his daughters kept going, safe because they listened to the warning. They remembered not to look back and lived on, remembering the lesson of what happens when people choose not to do what's right. They learned the consequences of bad choices and the importance of listening and following guidance, especially when it comes from God.
One day God spoke to Abraham. "Abraham," he called, and Abraham answered, "Here I am." Then God gave him a command that must have shaken him to his core. "Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him as a sacrifice to me on a mountain I will show you." Abraham loved Isaac more than anything. He was the son God had promised him in his old age. But Abraham also trusted God completely. And so, early the next morning, he gathered wood, took Isaac and two servants, and set out for the mountain. For 3 days, they traveled. Finally, they saw the mountain in the distance. Abraham turned to his servants and said, "Stay here. Isaac and I will go worship, and then we will return." As they walked, Isaac noticed something was missing. "Father, we have the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Abraham took a deep breath and answered, "God will provide the lamb, my son." And they continued climbing. With deep sorrow, Abraham explained what God had asked of him. Isaac, trusting his father and God, did not resist. Abraham tied him up and placed him on the altar. He raised his knife, ready to obey. "Abraham, Abraham!" an angel of the Lord called from heaven. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you truly fear God, for you have not withheld your son from me." Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in a thicket. God had provided the sacrifice. With tears of relief, Abraham took the ram and offered it instead of his son. Because Abraham trusted God, God blessed him, saying, "I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. Through them, all nations on earth will be blessed." This story reminds us that God always provides, even when things seem impossible. Faith and obedience bring great rewards.
When Abraham and Sarah were very old, they came to Hebron. There, Sarah died when she was 127 years old. Abraham and Isaac were very sad, but were comforted by God's promises. They continued living in Canaan, the land God had promised them. One day, Abraham saw that his son was growing up and needed to get married. So Abraham called his greatest servant, Eliezer, and said, "Eliezer, make me a promise before God to find a wife for my son Isaac. Promise me that you will travel back to my people to find her. Please give me your word that you won't choose a bride from any of the women here." Then Eliezer said to his master,
"What if the woman doesn't want to come with me? Should I take Isaac to her?"
But Abraham replied, "No, the Lord of heaven and earth has promised to give this land to my children. He will send his angel to my relatives to prepare the way for you. If she refuses to come, then you are released from your promise." So Eliezer obeyed and took 10 camels, special gifts, and a band of men. They all traveled to the city of Nahor. They arrived in the evening, the time when the women of the city came out to draw water. So Eliezer made the camels kneel down by the well, and he prayed,
"Oh Lord God of my master Abraham, please show your love to him and help me find a wife for Isaac today."
Eliezer was standing by the well, so he asked God for a sign, saying, "I'll ask one of the women if she will drop some water for me to drink. If she's the right one for Isaac, would you let her say yes? And I will draw water for your camels too?" Before he had finished praying, a beautiful woman came out to draw water. Her name was Rebecca. She filled her jar, and as she was leaving, Eliezer ran towards her, saying,
"Please give me a little water to drink."
She gave him some water and then said, "I will draw water for your camels too." She quickly ran to the well to get more water. She drew and drew water until all the camels had finished drinking. Eliezer was amazed. He thought,
"This could be the woman for my master."
So he took a gold ring and 2 bracelets and gave them to Rebecca and asked her,
"Whose daughter are you? Is there room in your father's house for us to stay the night?"
She said, "I am Bethuel's daughter and the granddaughter of Nahor, Abraham's brother. Yes, we do have room for you to sleep. There's lodging for your camels too." Then Eliezer bowed his head and worshipped God. Rebecca ran home and told her brother Laban all about Eliezer. When Laban heard Rebecca's story and saw the jewelry, he ran out to meet Eliezer. He invited all of them to his house. When Laban urged them to eat, Eliezer responded, "I won't eat until I talk to you." Eliezer told Laban all about his master Abraham and how rich he was, and about his son, Isaac. Then he shared about the promise he made to find Isaac a wife. He asked the family if they would allow Rebecca to be Isaac's wife. Her father and brothers said, "Yes, this is the Lord's will." When Eliezer heard their answer, he bowed before the Lord. Then he brought out more gifts for Rebecca, for Laban and Rebecca's mother too. After that, it was time for dinner and bed. When they got up in the morning, Eliezer asked if he could leave that same day. The family was a little sad. Rebecca's brother and mother said, "Already? Can't Rebecca stay with us a little longer? At least 10 days? But Eliezer said,
"The Lord has blessed me. Send me to my master now. Don't keep me here any longer."
So they asked Rebecca if she was willing to go with Eliezer that same day. She said, "Yes." Then the family blessed Rebecca and sent her on her way. They packed their camels and rode back to Canaan. When they arrived, Isaac was out in the field praying. He looked up, saw the camels coming, and went to meet them. When Rebecca saw Isaac, She got off her camel and asked Eliezer, "Who is that handsome man coming towards us?" Eliezer said,
"That's my master."
and so it was that Isaac and Rebekah got married. He loved her very much, and she comforted him after his mother's death.
Once upon a time, in the land of Canaan, there lived a man named Isaac and his wife Rebekah. Isaac was the son of Abraham, a man of great faith. Isaac and Rebekah were blessed with twin boys, Esau and Jacob. Esau, the older of the two, was a skilled hunter and his father's favorite. Jacob, however, was quieter and preferred to stay at home, and he was very dear to his mother Rebekah. As the boys grew, their differences became more pronounced, and so did their parents' preferences. This favoritism led to a rivalry between Esau and Jacob. One day, Esau returned from hunting, famished. He saw Jacob cooking a stew and asked for some. Jacob, seizing the opportunity, asked Esau to trade his birthright as the eldest son for the stew. Esau, thinking little of the future and driven by his immediate hunger, agreed. Years passed, and Isaac grew old and blind. He decided it was time to bestow his blessings upon his sons. Traditionally, the firstborn, Esau, would receive the greater blessing. Rebekah, who overheard Isaac's plan, favored Jacob and devised a plan to secure the blessing for him. She instructed Jacob to disguise himself as Esau by wearing Esau's clothes and covering his arms and neck with goatskins to mimic his brother's hairy skin. Jacob, with some hesitation, followed his mother's plan. He went to his father, pretending to be Esau, and asked for his blessing. Isaac, doubtful because of the voice he heard, was convinced by the hairy feel of Jacob's arms. Believing it was indeed Esau, Isaac bestowed upon Jacob a powerful blessing, promising him prosperity and dominion. When Esau learned what had happened, he was furious and vowed to kill Jacob. Fearing for her younger son's life, Rebekah sent Jacob away to her brother Laban's house in Haran, both to escape Esau's wrath and to find a wife from her own family. During his journey to Haran, Jacob experienced a profound dream at a place he named Bethel. He dreamt of a ladder reaching to heaven with angels ascending and descending on it, and God standing above it. God repeated the promise he made to Abraham and Isaac, extending it to Jacob, promising the land on which he lay and numerous descendants. Years passed, and Jacob worked for Laban, marrying his daughters Leah and Rachel and growing wealthy. Despite the success, Jacob longed to return home. God instructed him to go back to his land, where he would still be under divine protection. As Jacob journeyed home, he was anxious about meeting Esau. He sent messengers ahead, who returned with news that Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men. Fearing the worst, Jacob divided his camp into two, hoping at least one could survive if Esau attacked. He also sent ahead a generous gift of livestock to Esau, hoping to appease him. The night before meeting Esau, Jacob wrestled with a mysterious figure until dawn, refusing to let go until he received a blessing. The figure, perceived to be divine, blessed him and changed his name to Israel, meaning he struggles with God. This encounter left Jacob limping but spiritually transformed. When Esau finally met Jacob, instead of anger, he greeted him with open arms. The brothers reconciled, proving that forgiveness and love could overcome past wrongs and misunderstandings. Jacob's journey was not just a physical one, but also a spiritual and moral growth path. He learned the importance of honesty, the consequences of deception, and the power of reconciliation. The story of Jacob, Esau, and Isaac teaches us about the complexities of family relationships, the impact of our choices, and the endless possibilities for forgiveness and change. In the land of Canaan, there lived a man named Jacob who had 12 sons. Among them was Joseph, his favorite, born to him in his old age. Jacob bestowed upon Joseph a coat of many colors, a symbol of his special favor. This favoritism stirred jealousy and resentment among Joseph's brothers. One day, Joseph had a dream. In his dream, he saw himself and his brothers binding sheaves in the field. Suddenly, Joseph's sheaf stood upright while his brothers' sheaves bowed down to it. When he shared this dream with his brothers, they despised him even more, feeling that Joseph was claiming superiority over them. Then Joseph had another dream. This time, he dreamed of the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down to him. He recounted this dream to his father and brothers, further aggravating their jealousy. Driven by envy, Joseph's brothers plotted against him. One day, when Joseph went to check on his brothers who were tending their father's flocks, they seized him and threw him into a pit. Initially, they intended to kill him, but instead, they sold him to a passing caravan of Ishmaelite traders who were heading to Egypt. In Egypt, Joseph was sold as a slave to Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard. Despite the hardship of slavery, Joseph remained faithful and diligent in his service. His integrity and competence caught the attention of Potiphar, who eventually entrusted him with the management of his household. However, Joseph's virtuousness drew unwanted attention. Potiphar's wife, tempted by Joseph's charm and righteousness, tried to seduce him. But Joseph, loyal to his master and to God, refused her advances. Enraged by his rejection, Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph of assaulting her. Consequently, Joseph was unjustly thrown into prison. Yet, even in prison, Joseph found favor in the eyes of the prison warden. He interpreted dreams for fellow inmates, including Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and baker, who were also imprisoned. Joseph accurately interpreted their dreams, foretelling the cupbearer's restoration to his position and the baker's execution. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him and his plight when he returned to Pharaoh's service. 2 years passed, and Pharaoh himself had troubling dreams. 7 healthy cows eaten by 7 sickly ones. 7 healthy grains devoured by 7 withered ones. Recalling Joseph's skill, the cupbearer finally mentioned him to Pharaoh. Joseph was brought before Pharaoh, and with God's wisdom, he interpreted the dreams as foretelling 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Impressed by Joseph's insight, Pharaoh appointed him as governor over all of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. Joseph diligently prepared for the coming famine by storing grain during the years of abundance. Sure enough, the famine struck not only Egypt, but also the surrounding lands, including Canaan. Joseph's brothers, desperate for food, journeyed to Egypt seeking assistance. Unbeknownst to them, they came before their own brother, whom they had betrayed and sold into slavery years before. Joseph recognized his brothers but kept his identity concealed. He tested their character, eventually revealing himself to them, forgiving them for their past wrongs, and urging them to bring their father and entire household to Egypt, where they would be provided for during the famine. Thus, Joseph's journey from pit to palace reached its culmination as he reconciled with his family and played a pivotal role in the salvation of his people during a time of crisis. Through his trials and triumphs, Joseph exemplified steadfast faith, forgiveness, and the providence of God.